Hey, I know I'm crazy. We are back with another episode. Today is a great one, and it's so important. As a matter of fact, you guys know how I record the episodes, and then we bank them, and I'll maybe share one 6 weeks later or 2 months later. This one, today is Wednesday. This one is coming out in a couple days because I thought it was so important to talk about the topic of forgiveness right about now, especially with everything that's already that's happening in the world. So today we have Jodi Cunningham. Jodi is an author and an expert on the topic of estrangement, particularly between mothers and daughters. With 33 years of experience as a housewife, well, she just told me she's not a housewife anymore. She ain't a wife no more. She's free! And a homeschooling mom, Jodi has a unique perspective on family dynamics. Right after this dance break, we're going to talk to Jodi about forgiveness, estrangement, and how we can all just get along. I know I'm crazy. Jodi Cunningham, welcome to I Know I'm Crazy with Naja Hall. How are you today?
I love that it's welcome to be crazy. My girlfriends and I that have been through similar situations, we say, well, we used to be dumb. Now we're just believed everything they were doing. And then we went crazy when what they were doing was not what we thought they were doing.
I would rather be crazy than dumb any day.
Yeah, well, you do get crazy when you realize you were dumb.
Because you're like, hey, you had me messed up. So, Jodi, I got to ask, and this was not even something I was planning on asking you, but in your bio, it did say housewife. How does one go from being the homeschooling housewife, the caretaker, the nucleus of the household, to now you're a free author doing your thing, changing the world, showing what forgiveness looks like? What happened?
So basically what happened is I was very, very happy in my marriage for like 30 years. But there was always things that were happening that I didn't really know. And I was always helping my husband with his career and keeping the family together. And I actually had 33 addresses in my adult life. So with him, I got married at 19 to him. And it was, honestly, I told my pastor, you're going to have to marry us because I can't stop touching him.
Jodi, you are freaky. I like it.
Well, no, if you like it, you don't have to be freaky, but yeah.
Freaky is good. No, that's a compliment. That's a good thing because the guys want the freaky girls,
The generation gap. So actually, very good to me. I planned out a marriage and the life I wanted, and he wanted it too. So he said, but I didn't know all through our marriage he had another. Like when he was at home, he was my husband. He was a loving person, but when he went out, he was someone else, and that all collided at the end of 30 years when my children estranged from us. Actually, my daughter is back now, but 7 years. And it was the catalyst because his single life collided with our married life. And but that took all this time. Like when I found out what he was doing, I actually did stay with him for almost 2 years, but he wasn't stopping. And you know what? I still wish him well. And he's been very honest, and he's gone on podcasts. So it's not like I'm outing him, but he actually chose to marry the woman he was having a long-term affair with. And that was actually my daughter's fiance's mother.
Okay. Oh, Jodi. Okay, so we're going there already. I haven't even had my coffee yet.
Yeah, I was more than estranged from myself because my book I wrote is called Estrangement, Healing for Mothers and Daughters. And
right.
So I was estranged from myself, not even knowing what was going on.
You were estranged from yourself. You were separated and divorced from your own self.
That's right. Oh. I changed everything to fit into this marriage. And I really did think this was the right thing. I checked all the blocks. We could pay for things we needed. We put the kids through school. We were able to buy our house. There were little things, though, along the way that I knew weren't right. Like when I got my, when I got a professional LPGA golfing certificate, I was fun, but it's not amazing. What's wrong? So there was this distraction of dullness of life. And my body would hurt, and I didn't know why. Well, my body, I believe, would hurt because when you're a believer in Christ, you're told that you are in the image of Christ. You have the Trinity. We have Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Well, your
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
you have your body, you have your mind, and the Spirit of God lives in you. So the Spirit of God was telling my body all these things that were going on. And so my body just always had anxiety. So once God just basically told me, like, hey, literally the last Christmas I had with my family, something was wrong. And she was there because my daughter had her fiance there. So she was there and it was with my kids. And I thought something was wrong, but I kind of thought it was my fault. And I thought, maybe I've just given too much. Maybe something's wrong because everyone that has secrets around you always tries to tell others there's something wrong. And I literally got on in my shower after Christmas and I heard the Holy Spirit say, enough, last Christmas. A month later, my kids were estranged. 19 months later, I found a video of this woman on my husband's computer.
She had been in your house celebrating holidays with you and your family.
Mm-hmm.
Sitting, breaking bread with you, sitting across the table, laughing, smiling. That's a betrayal on another level. And I'm not a fan on blaming the other woman, but she literally sat in your home and saw your family and was intentionally taking an active role in breaking it apart. What the hell could he have said to her to make her stoop so low?
Well, it's interesting because I can't really speak for her, but I do know that she actually had, her son, and that first her son's biological father, that relationship was over, and then later she left her husband after 15 years of being a stepfather to her son. And I thought she was this poor divorced lady, but she was getting set to take everything I had. But also, God kind of knew, hey, this is my Jodi. I'm taking my Jodi. And it was so amazing because I felt like when it happened, I felt like I was a slave princess in Pharaoh's kingdom. And I needed to go through the Red Sea and say goodbye to the great lifestyle that I thought was great. And God had something better for me.
It's always better. And guys, there's a lot of us that, I'm not one to hide religion. We try to avoid politics, but it's pretty unavoidable in this day and age.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you that are not Christians or you call God by a different name, what
Mm-hmm.
Jodi means when she says the Holy Spirit told her, some people call it intuition. Some people refer to it as energy. Some people call it the universe looking out for you. Some of us just say, God's got my back. So no matter how you put it, what she's saying is her nervous system was on fire because this man that she loved and trusted was out there in the streets doing God knows what with God knows whom, because I'm pretty sure the mistress was not the only one. It never truly is.
Oh, no.
So and you know that it's not your place to say. You're not going to blow up her happy home. And what do you think about this phrase? I gotta ask you this. People call them home wreckers, and they'll say, "Well, you can't wreck a home that's intact." Did she come in and wreck something that was intact? Were you completely blindsided, or when you got a chance to kind of recollect and see how things unfolded, did you just say, "Well, yeah, there was some holes in the operation"?
Well, I definitely now there were holes in the operation. And so I'm on here to talk about estrangement healing for mothers and daughters, but I have a
Yes.
story in a book I wrote as fiction, and it's called Jezebel Poisons Oak Trees Still. And it's actually up for a movie option that's not even out yet.
So explain to the people who don't know what Jezebel is and what she represents. Explain what Jezebel is before you tell us about that.
So Jezebel is the Old Testament. She was a princess that was part of an Israel king. She wanted to destroy all of God's prophets, and she wanted to do everything for her husband and please him. But she has certain ways she acts. She only talks nice to you if she wants to possess what you have. She doesn't want you to find the truth, and she'll only come to you when you're at your highest. We had just bought a very expensive home. We were at our highest. Everything looked good. So in a way, we were actually looking for almost the love of money, is really what I would say. And I think you have to respect money, but not love it. And everything was, like I said, everything was going the way we had planned, but something was wrong. I didn't know what it was. So there were holes, but like I said, I didn't know. And after I got a divorce, I actually had a lady come to me and tell me that he tried to be with her when I was pregnant at only 26 years old. So, and like I said, I'm not necessarily outing him because he's gone on podcasts and called her out as the love of his life, even though my
Okay.
going to marry into that family. But she estranged. We all blew up.
So, was the estrangement with your own daughter because of this situation, or was it already brewing?
It was brewing because, like I said, my body was always agitated, and I was you have a good cop, bad cop. I was the bad cop. I enforced all the rules, but he
Yeah.
was leaving and going to work, and he made all the money. So I elevated him. So in the Baptist church is what I grew up in. You really elevated your husband, you elevated your family, almost to a point where you would never think, hey, is dad not the person I'm saying he is? And it's
Mm.
interesting because she knew things about her father that I didn't know, that she's now, letting me know. She couldn't have told me because I would have been, oh, your dad is wonderful. Everything is good. So when people talk about blind faith, I don't think it has anything to do with our creator. I think it has everything to do with maybe a relationship that you have that you're being deceived in. He taught me blind faith. And, for that, I'm very thankful.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's a way to find the gold out of the trash can. So I want to talk about the book.
Out of the
I, I want to talk about the book and moving on to the book. So
estrangement book.
you
Yes.
you go through this this horrible life experience, and we're going to put a pin in that because I want you to kind of break down what it looks like. Um, you go through this horrific life experience. You feel the pangs of estrangement.
Mhm.
So what happens when you say, "I'm on the other side. I'm going to pen a novel about this"? How
Mhm.
did we get there?
So, Estrangement, actually, both of my novels, the first one that I wrote actually was because I just had to get it down. There were so many things that I was seeing and doing, and God was helping me all the way, much like Tamar in the book of Genesis. God was for Tamar, and he drew her out. And so I wrote the Jezebel book because of that. But the Estrangement book, I had gone through 7 years of counseling. I went and got a master's in theology, and I've learned some very good tools. And there's 8 chapters of great tools that people can do that I paid a lot of money in counseling to do. And I wanted to share it for real people. And then there's one chapter on Jesus, and there's one chapter on the Holy Spirit. But for example, expectations, I never once sat down and said, what are my expectations? And are my expectations kind? Are they feasible? Are they known? And I didn't even know my children's expectations of me because everything was okay, get up and eat, do the laundry, go to school. Everything was in order.
Once you found that out, that's good. What did you realize were their unmet expectations? I'm sure they've probably told you, but
Hmm.
what were the unmet expectations? And this is good for a lot of moms out there that think they're doing everything right and they're so tired because they're doing everything, but you might not be meeting the kids' needs. What were some of the things that your daughter has come back and said?
Well, she hasn't come back and said a whole lot, and part of this is protecting our conversations. But
Yeah, okay.
what I can tell you is that there was unhealed emotions in me from my own childhood and my mother's, which is interesting because my 5 generations back, I can remember estrangement and adultery. And so when I got married at 19, I wanted to do things different. And I thought the church was different. But it was similar. It was just a little easier to hide and forgive instead of saying restoring and forgiveness means you do your part to really change. You don't just automatically forgive. Forgiveness comes at a cost. So what I did is that I realized that I had an unhealed emotion. For example, I felt like my parents, because my parents were raised by depression babies. So you had to make your money for yourself. So everything I did in high school, I paid for myself. And so when I got older, I was like, I would have been so much better if my parents would have put me in all of these, skills and music and sports, and if they would have paid for me younger. But that was a fallacy thought from, I believe, the enemy camp, because my talents, your talents, they're still there waiting for us to cultivate. So what I did is I put my kids in everything.
You made sure they had what you did not have.
That's right. And then one of the things they said early on this estrangement, not on, was, Mom, you put me in everything and I was not allowed to fail. That emotion backfired. So
Mm.
they didn't have the emotion of me, which, my goodness, my parents don't invest in me at all. But my parents never really felt that way. They wanted me to experience walking my own journey without their money so that I can make it on my own in case I went through the same thing that their parents went through, which was the Great Depression.
And then they probably didn't have the resources to put you in this and that. And your life was completely different. You guys prospered in a different way financially. You wanted your kids to have what you didn't have. And we all want our kids, we want to protect them from feeling how we felt. And we're not realizing that we're making them susceptible to another whole set of feelings. You said you do have two children, and did they just both decide we're just not talking to mom and dad right now?
Right, right. We had like the situation. What was going on is, anything my children didn't like, they went over to this woman. And my ex-husband and I lived in another state for a while, where my kids and this woman were at. And anything they griped about me,
Wait, who was the woman? Wait,
sorry.
the mistress?
Oh shoot. Sorry about that. I thought
That's
I
okay.
just did it.
It's okay. So who was the woman that they were complaining to? I guess she became like their repository and
Well, she's now
mom.
stepmom. So
Oh, oh.
so
So
if I said, hey, because they were going to college, we were paying for things. If I was like, you need to make sure that, you clean this up at the house, or you do this at the house, they would, say something to her. And instead of saying, well, that's great, I'll help you do it, it'd be like, oh, I'd do that for you. It was crazy. Like,
okay.
it was crazy. It would be like, what do you mean your mom didn't make you a cake because you passed a great class? And then that was a big deal. And I thought, I paid for the class, but I didn't know what was going on. But I was so used to the family, like, structure, which we all have, where we all have to, get off the video games, do school, go to work, pay the bills, so it wasn't anything different. But she elevated that to such a level that when the kids said, I'm out, she actually had a massive part in it.
I see. So what she did was undermine your authority in an attempt to win the kids over. And that's such a manipulative tactic. We see it all the time. That's a poor parenting tactic. It's obviously a form of alienation.
Yeah.
And it's like, dang, you got the man. You want the kids too, girl? Like, you want to take everything from me?
She wanted, I think she wanted to be me. She looks like me now too. So that's okay. That's an honor, I guess.
So I was on TikTok, Jodi. I was on TikTok here recently, scrolling like I do in my downtime. And this girl was like, hey, ladies, you ever wonder why your ex, his new girlfriend or whatever fiance starts to get the same car as you, get the same degree as you? She dyes her hair, she gets a boob job, she loses weight. And there's some sort of phenomenon to that. And I got to go find it. I'll send it to you if I find it. But I just remember, and all these women were like, oh my God, but the lady broke down the psychology of why the new person goes and does that. But she took it to an extreme though. It's like, girl, you got the man. Okay, fine. But you want the whole family? You just want to repackage everything that I have.
Well, I built him up. So now she's figuring it out.
Jodi, listen, we can give him all the ingredients, but the sauce ain't going to taste the same. So
This was not supposed to be about, this wasn't supposed to be about that,
But there's so many people that this is helping, and boom. Because I still want to. We're leading toward estrangement. I gotta ask. I gotta ask, you're a Christian woman. Did you go beat her up?
Well,
Don't answer that.
I thought about, so what, how I figured it out is I found a video on his computer that was an animalistic graphic video. So I had all of her, I know more about her body than I know about my own. So, yes. So I honestly thought about screenshotting all of those, and she works at a university, putting those pictures of her all over her car. I did think about that. But you
And it's good that the thought didn't matriculate into reality, because you would have gone to jail for revenge, you know what. So I'm glad that that didn't happen. I've
know,
asked a couple
and
questions.
but
So let's talk about the book, because estrangement, especially in this day and age, more people are talking about it. And we don't see estrangement between mothers and daughters too much. It's easy to discard dad. Oh, and we shirk him off as being the deadbeat dad, or he was at work all the time, or he left her in divorce.
Mhm.
But one thing that I've always seen culturally with human beings, not even culturally dividing into ethnicities, is people will say, oh, that's your mother. You can forgive her. She can do this. And there's a revolution now of young people, especially in my generation. Well, I'm not that young, but I'll say millennials and right above me, that are saying, wait a minute, my mother was narcissistic. My mother was actually toxic. My mother was so unrelenting and unforgiving, and she caused my trauma. And I don't have to be connected to this person just because I popped out of her birth canal. So I want to kind of switch gears and talk about, I still want to talk more about that mistress and this divorce, because my God, I'm mad for you. I know
Another
you're not mad anymore. That's another, you got to come back. So I want to talk about estrangement. Your book, it's called Estrangement, Healing for Mothers and Daughters. Let's get into the book a little bit. You know, you said there were 8 principles that you're sharing in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about one of them. It's just identifying expectations. So what's after that?
So we actually have a way that we communicate. Most of us either like to feel liked and help everybody else feel liked. We like to feel safe, or let other people feel safe. We like to maybe be in control, or we also like to be right. So right, liked, control, and safe. Those are not bad things, and they're virtue and they're good. They're very helpful, but they can turn to a vice if you don't know how to communicate to another. So if my number one communication goals is liked and safe, but yet maybe I'm talking to my child and they don't care whether you're liked or not or safe. They want to be right and they want to be in control. So if somebody is like number one right and somebody is at the very fore right, when there's a conflict, those two people are going to have a blowout. And this is so valuable because I was like, who am I? I didn't even know my communication goals for myself. And therapy
Yeah.
helped me do this. And that's what I learned. And it's also one of my chapters that you can look it up and figure out who you are. And then ask your children, how do you want to be spoken to? Like if you have a child that wants to feel safe, you might want to give them a little bit of time in the morning to wake up, have quiet music, and not talk about like, hey, are you going to get the dishwasher done? And you better do this school project and get it done, because a person that wants to be in control and right wants things done. Does that make sense to you?
That makes so. How about, before we start pouring our communication style on a person, we find out what theirs is. That's
Being
what you're saying. And even children, which a lot of us are not taught, children actually have the right to choose how they want us to communicate with them too. Just ask.
That's right.
Gosh, that would help us avoid so much conflict and so much misunderstanding between parents, especially mothers and daughters. Is there a particular, and I didn't see this in the book, but is there a particular age range where we see estrangement happening between mothers and daughters?
2 years old.
What? So we're starting early.
So children have to learn how to self-soothe. Children have to learn how to have good coping mechanisms, as do adults. So, for example, if you have what's called the Four Horsemen, there's a biblical title, but there's also the Gottman Institute. about how we can act as a four horsemen. We can be a stonewaller. We can have contempt.
Mm.
And there's a couple other ones. So sometimes stonewalling is taught by a mom that goes to work, doesn't talk to her child. Sometimes stonewalling is taught by a father who doesn't want to deal with the fact that when he walks out the door, he's got another life. So those are things that we need to get rid of and learn how to overcome. And this generation is quite lucky because, like, the things I've learned, I was like, this would have helped me at 19. All
Yeah.
these tools would help me at 19. If I get on my stonewalling horse and I ride away, I'm kind of the dum dum. That might be a donkey out.
What do you do as I gotta feel like it's every mother's worst nightmare to think this beautiful little bundle of joy that I'm holding one day might tell me, look me in my face and say, I don't want you in my life in any capacity. I don't want to be with you. I don't want to deal with you. What do you do when you're faced with that?
So remember grief. You have grief because you love. And somehow along the way, they needed to break and find their own journey, and so did you. And same with me. I've learned. And so no matter what your children choose to do, it can be brutal. And I think about Jesus and Mary. He chose to walk that cross and be beaten beyond measure. And so when our children choose something we don't want, we have to let them walk their journey. And it's very difficult. And the good thing is to remember the prodigal son story that Jesus said. They had the younger son that ran out and ran away from home, didn't run
And
away.
he'll come back,
He took,
perhaps.
yeah, he took all of the inheritance. But the older son stayed home to please the father to get what he wanted. So there's an underlining power there that shows both sons hated the father. Both
Mm.
needed to find love. So you might have a child at home that would love to tell you where to go. And I know this is true. I was in New York City coming down my elevator of 50 floors, and there was like a 30-year-old couple talking about how much they hated this woman's mother and father. And I was in estrangement, and I was pushed up against the wall of the elevator. And I'm just, Lord, how are these kids hating their children, their parents so bad? We get off the elevator, we go in the lobby. These kids are behind me, and they run past me to these adult parents and say, I love you, mom and dad. I love you. So find our own way. And it's okay because in a way we all kind of hate God too until we figure it out. And he lets us
Mm.
go his own way. That's a big theme in the whole Bible.
Mm. Wow. Wow. So I am the air of humiliation and embarrassment. How do you deal with that, culturally speaking? Because, oh, if your kids aren't talking to you, you must be a bad mom. And everything that you've represented, I can tell that you're a good woman, you're a good person, and you tried to do your best with your kids.
Yeah.
Um, how do you deal with the societal letdown? Or, you're wearing the A. What's not a scarlet letter, but I don't
It's
know what the letter would be.
Scarlet
But
Letter.
how do you deal with that?
It's horrible because when it first happened, I mean, people said terrible things to me. And also, I seen other women that were estranged. So, if you think about estrangement as a virtue in itself, that it's a time of protection, like a swan's wings are around the babies in the storm. Estrangement could be a time of timeout, of protection. You could fall to the vice of, I gave my kids everything, those little brats. Or you can fall to the vice of, the world's going to crash. They're going to die without me. They cannot hold on their own. Those are three real places you can be. But we get to choose our own choice. Are we going to stay and trust this process and heal within so that we're so strong that when they do come home, even if they're living in a world of vice instead of virtue and they're not strong, we'll still be a safe place for them. Even if they say things that hurt, we'll be able to hear it because they need to speak their truth and we need to love them. And I did make my children feel like they weren't doing good enough. I didn't know I was doing that, but I did. I did yell at my kids. I did, build up this marriage from what it wasn't. and those are my responsibilities. But I'm still, at the end of the day, outside of all of our discretions, I still love my children, and in their hearts they love me. Otherwise they wouldn't be so mad.
Mm. Yeah. That's a very thin line. As a parent, I know it's good to say I'm going to give them space while they figure this out. But what about, are there any reasons why you can say, okay, we got to break this silence? Like, I would imagine if someone's dying or something has happened, or you find out you got a new grandkid on the way, is it ever okay to break the boundary that they've set?
So with your children, so people told me not to say anything, but I just knew that wasn't right. So because I thought, what if I die and my kids have nothing? And so I did send emails to my kids, but they weren't like, I wouldn't send them the estrangement book and say, hey, do the estrangement book. It's right with yourself, like I have. No, no. But things like, thinking of you today. Don't even say anything. Oh, and pray about it. And just one of the things my daughter said to me when she returned is she goes, none of your emails went unnoticed. So even if they're angry, at least they know their mom really tried.
Mm.
But just
There's
don't.
no ego in reunification for the parent. There can't be any ego.
Mm-hmm. And if the parent isn't healed, every parent out there, if you're not working on self-care, and if you don't like your counselor, if you're not moving forward, get a new one.
Please find you somebody that is working for you. Because, guys, we'll go out and dump a man real fast. We'll change our hairstyle because we don't like our hair color. We'll go and get a new bra outfit. Find a new healer. Find a new church. Find a new doctor. Find a new dentist. Find a new therapist. If they're not working for you, switch them out just like you switch those wigs, girls. Please do that. This is self-care. This is self-love. Um, Coming through the effort of you saying, your child saying, hey, okay, I'm ready to talk, or I want to talk to you. Your situation is a bit convoluted because there's a person in your kids' lives who cause a lot of harm. And I don't know how the process of forgiveness works with somebody that you kind of don't have to deal with. But
Mhm.
what does all of that look like? Because there's so many layers to your type of, not only mother and daughter forgiveness, but there's somebody that kind of pushed the relationship over the edge that's still in the picture. I'm
Right.
assuming that's still in the picture.
Yes.
So how do you do that? How the heck do you do that, Jodi?
So, one, I let go of what I can't control. Remember the serenity prayer. So, whatever,
Ooh, God, please grant me. Oh yeah.
uh-huh.
I'll post it, guys, for those of you that don't know the Serenity Prayer. I'm gonna
Yeah. Yeah.
post it
So,
so you can see it. It's good.
his life is his life. What he's doing, that has nothing to do with me anymore. I'm free of that. And I got, my justice was I got the divorce. So unfortunately, my children, they haven't gotten anything. So we'll see how they work that out. But then also, my daughter has worked so hard to get better that through her therapy, she's seen and remembered that even though I was yelling, at times I was protecting her, and I was yelling because she needed protection. And, it wasn't like super bad stuff, but enough that the one that was there was my mother. And if she would have known what would have happened, if I would have known some of the things that were happening, I'm not sure how I would have handled it. My faith
Yeah.
was a bit weaker. I mean, I used to tell my mom, when this came out, because I was estranged with my mother, and this thing helped me not be estranged from my mom. And I said, Mom, if I do take revenge and I go to jail, send me cigars. I always wanted to have a women's ministry. A great place to start it.
Do you think that the pattern of estrangement was something that was generationally passed down? Your daughter saw these behaviors in you and was like, oh, because I feel like with kids, if we know it's an option, then they're probably going to do it. So she's like, oh, I can be estranged. How much of an impact did your situation have with your kids?
100%, because I estranged from my parents for 7 years. And the reason why I estranged from my parents is my dad had other women that I knew about, and my mom didn't want to talk about it. And also, her mother had other men, didn't want to talk about it. And her mother before that. So I had this marriage where I thought a man was faithful because he was very nice, but he was still unfaithful. But that was my husband. I was a godly wife. I was submitting. That was the cloak of traditionalism that hid all the secrets that men were really doing. And different.
So you had to become, after being a housewife, the crux of your work is working in the home. So there was no solid paycheck. We couldn't assign a monetary value to the invaluable work that you had done. But then when we think I'm getting a divorce, you're like, I can't pay my new rent or my new mortgage off of being a housewife. How do you regroup and restart after 30 years of being out of the workforce?
Well, one of the things I heard God speak to me and say, cultivate your creativity. And so I have been able to financially take care of me. But remember, we were married 33 years and I handled all the money. We had no debt when we left. And we sold everything after COVID. So, all the real estate went up. I handled all the real estate, even though he actually was in charge of, he used to be a nuclear submarine driver. He used to have he still is very high in his positions. So all of the stuff we made through real estate was equal to what we saved with his salary. So when I did, there was an equalization. But because we were living in a city that said that your lifestyle, you got to have your money, keep your lifestyle. We were living in Manhattan and Paradise Valley, going back and forth. But when we were doing the mediation, I actually did take less because I honestly heard, like, I could feel Jesus being beaten in that mediation. And I'm like, there's only so much you can eat, so much you can buy. And so I signed the papers and set him free. And I did give him a loan for his, paying his alimony, which will be up soon.
You set him free and you set yourself free, most importantly, and your kids and unhealed trauma. It's like you let all that go because you were not trying to hold on to something that you knew wouldn't serve you. You knew hurting him, taking would not serve anybody. That's admirable. Do you have any bits of advice for a mother that is in the throes of estrangement? Any bits of advice from her very beautiful daughter who she's poured all this love and attention and time into and given everything? And she feels betrayed. She feels lost and dark and hopeless. And she's also a little angry. What is she supposed to do tomorrow morning when she wakes up?
Well, she'll be glad she got through another night. She's going to spend a lot of time crying. Get in a safe space. Start doing journaling, because I promise you there's things that you cannot see, and God is shaking it out. And the first shake is to cover you in estrangement, because you're going to find out things you never knew. Do not go with anybody that puts your children down or scares you about your children. Have no dread, only awe and wonder of your maker.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Jodi Cunningham. Oh my God. Yeah, you're going to have to definitely come back and talk to us. There's so much that we didn't get to cover on the issue of estrangement, but I hope you all found so much value as I did. I learned so much during this podcast. Jodi, can you tell everybody where to find you, how to follow you, and how to support all of your endeavors?
Okay, so my book is Estrangement, Healing for Mothers and Daughters on Amazon. But I also have my website, which is my name, Jodi Cunningham, and there's more on there. If you want to write a book, jump on there. I can help you write a book with my company called Authors on Mission.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Jodi Larae, Larae Cunningham. I'm going to tag all of her links down below. And guys, please go and visit her on her social medias, buy her books. Everything will be linked, and make sure you let her know that Naja sent you. I will see you all next Tuesday, every Tuesday after next. You guys know how I do it. Every other Tuesday. I know I'm crazy with Naja Hall. Everywhere your favorite podcasts are streamed.
I know I'm crazy. Naja Hall.
Oh, we got through it, Jodi.